Good afternoon, class. Today I am going to be discussing with you Chapter 12, Children with Developmental Disability. And so here we go. Your slides for Chapter 12 should be listed on Western Online, and you can follow them along as I lecture. So slide 1, there have been several different ways of defining developmental disability. Our book defines it as a complex phenomenon that may affect social, behavioral, intellectual, physical, and emotional development of a child. So I think that it is important for us to recognize that children who have developmental disability, it is not just impacting their ability to learn in their classrooms, it's affecting all aspects of their lives. The diagnosis of DD, developmental disability, often includes mental retardation, cerebral palsy, autism spectrum disorders, hearing loss, and several other different categories. However, when I refer to developmental disability, I'm primarily going to be referring not to those other categories. So if there is not a comorbid diagnosis and I say DD, that means I'm really referring to a child who has mental retardation. The text uses developmental disability over the term of mental retardation. And on page 361, box 12.1, they gave us a very nice synopsis of the reasoning why for that. And I would agree that when I am working clinically, that I would refer to a child as having a developmental disability rather than mental retardation. And even as adults, we talk about the group facilities where adults with developmental disabilities live, and with peers, we refer to them as DD homes. Okay, so moving on, there's no universally agreed upon definition. The American Association on Mental Retardation does stick by using mental retardation for a couple of different reasons. They look at the disability impacting both intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. And when they refer to adaptive behavior, they're looking at several different concepts, including conceptual, social, and practical adaptive skills. One thing that is synonymous with all of the different definitions of mental retardation or developmental disability would be the inclusion of the fact that it originates before the age of 18. Moving on to the second slide, the American Psychiatric Association in 2000 defined developmental disability as the listing here on the slide, which includes having sub-average intellectual functioning, as well as limitations in adaptive functioning in at least 2 of the areas that were listed, including communication, self-care, home living, social or interpersonal skills, the individual's ability to utilize community resources, so things such as can the person catch the bus to go across town to Walmart to buy groceries, self-direction, functional academic skills, which as an adult that would include doing your banking, paying your bills, leisure, health, and safety. And again, the APA also includes the fact that the onset needs to occur before the age of 18. The other thing to consider would be how we classify developmental disability. There's several different ways of doing that, which on page 363, they begin that discussion. At the top of page 363, however, there's some discussion made about the importance of not lumping a group of individuals together, just as we talk about writing goals for each child as an individual for their individual needs. The same thing applies here, whether it's a child with DD or an adult. just because someone has an IQ of, let's say, 68, two people, same IQ of 68, are going to have different skills. There are individuals who would have an IQ of 68 who could hold a job with some very minimal supports and be very productive in their community, live a normal life. Then there could be someone who has the same IQ who is unable to care for themselves. So it is really important to not just look at IQ as determining the individual's ability to do things in society. Specific things to think about would be that person's social and personal demands, as well as the individual's culture, linguistic background. Also, if the individual has other deficits that might be interfering with their adaptive skills, motor ability, maybe if they have a hearing or vision loss, those things would also interfere with their ability to be as productive as someone who did not have those issues going on. Okay, the reasoning for not including individuals who would have onset of these different issues after 18 is to take into account individuals who suffer from traumatic brain injury, neurological disorders, individuals who might have a psychiatric disorder that's not diagnosed until later in life. Those people would not meet the criteria for a diagnosis of DD. Okay, so the classification of DD is really a matter of degree. You can't say present, absent, pass, fail kind of thing. Again, the American Psychiatric Association looks at DD with its severity, and they use the preferred term of MR. So they look at mild, moderate, severe, and profound in regards to a person's intellectual abilities. As far as mild mental retardation, the book gives us the number that approximately 85% of children with DD fall into this category, and that the rough IQ range would be between 50 to 70, and that this group of children oftentimes will not be diagnosed with mental retardation until during their school years, because in the early school years, preschool years, they seem to be functioning fairly typically compared to other children their age. I would say that there are some subtle differences with children in this age group, though, that just might not be readily diagnosed yet. Moderate mental retardation, these individuals would have IQ ranges between 35 and 55, and our text discusses that about 10% of individuals fall into this area. People who fall in the moderate range of mental retardation oftentimes can be taught some basic tasks. They can work in workshops similar to Bridgeway, is what we have here, doing repetitive, semi-skilled work. The book went on to talk about severe mental retardation, and this category includes about 3 to 4% of children with developmental disabilities, and the IQ range is between 20 and 40. This is where the impact of language development is felt really strongly. Children who have severe MR are going to even maybe have some difficulty with using some sign language. And these children, when they grow into adults, will really need pretty much one-on-one constant supervision to be able to do tasks of daily living. Then you have the final group, which would be profound mental retardation, and this makes up about 1 to 2% of children with developmental disabilities. Often the IQ here is below 20 to 25 and below. Often people who fall into this range would have some type of comorbid diagnosis, neurological in nature, or possibly a genetic syndrome. and a lot of times you'll see these individuals will have multiple issues, so they might be wheelchair bound and have little communicative ability. So